What is up, everyone? Today we're checking out two absolutely lovely PowerPC machines. They're both a little bit different. We've got one Power Mac and one iMac, but they came as a pair together. This weekend, a lovely car boot sale deal, just £25 for these two machines. And I just could not say no. Big shout out to my mum and dad who were in the car boot sale and spotted them at the time. They phoned me up and just wanted to check, basically, do I want these? Because obviously they're quite big. And lately, I don't know if you guys have seen, but I've been trying to downsize my collection a little bit. I've let a fair few machines go on eBay. It's the biggest downsize that I've done in quite a few years. So the idea of bringing more quite large and old computers into the house isn't exactly aligning with my plan. But as soon as they said £25 and the words iMac and the words Power Mac, I just could not say no. I will say yes to these deals until the end of time. So definitely a big thanks to mum and dad for picking these up for me. I don't really go to car boot sales that much anymore. Jess and I have been chatting about going a little bit more now the kids are older and maybe looking for some deals and that, but it was a little bit awkward when they were all young and running around and into all sorts of things, you know. So yeah, it's not part of our routine at the moment. And like I say, when I'm trying to downsize, tempting myself with loads of lovely technological treasures is probably not a very good idea. But you do come across some lovely deals just like this one. So for a little bit of value perspective for a minute, £25 for these two machines, that is a seriously good price. You only have to tap iMac G3 or Power Mac G4 into eBay to look at the going rate, but I didn't buy these to resell specifically. The main reason I wanted to get my hands on these was to show you guys in this video, and who knows, potentially a future video depending on how much we get through today. It's just been far too long since we've found random machines out in the wild and checked them out. We have absolutely no idea of the condition, no idea of the spec. They're just sat here as they were, with the keyboard and mouse that you see in the frame. So we're going to do the full journey of discovery together today. First of all, I think the easiest thing to do would be to start with the machine that I'm most familiar with, which is of course the Power Mac. We'll start with that for two reasons, I guess. Firstly, yes, I am most familiar with it, but secondly, it's the least exciting out of the two, arguably, because we've covered Power Macs so much on the channel. And I have never ever had a first generation iMac. So all the iMacs that I've shown have been the slot load models of various descriptions over the years. This is an original iMac. It is a tray load model, although you can tell from the color, any of you who know anything about iMac G3s, this isn't the very, very first model, because this is in fact a grape color iMac. So when we take a look at the iMac, we'll chat more about the various models, specifically which model this one is, and hopefully get it fired up to check out the spec if it does work. And if it doesn't, I'm sure we'll be able to find the sticker on the machine to tell us the spec. So £25, iMac G3, Power Mac G4 MDD, and a nice Apple keyboard and mouse as well. So let's start off with the Power Mac. For those of you who are potentially quite new to the channel, or anyone who's just kind of needing a little refresher on me and what goes on, the Power Mac line of desktops, and specifically the G4, they are my favorite machines of all time. I have covered them extensively on the channel over the last decade and a half, and we've seen all manner of models and modifications and different projects with them along the way. This particular machine here is an MDD, mirrored drive doors, named for its very shiny and reflective mirror surface doors covering the two optical drive bays. And this is of course the last case revision for the Power Mac G4. It came in quite a wide spec range, all the way from 867 megahertz right up to a dual 1.42 gigahertz G4, which is the fastest G4 machine ever produced by Apple. And there were even third-party upgrades beyond that, although incredibly rare today. There were faster aftermarket CPUs that people did upgrade these with back in the day if they did not want to make the leap to a Power Mac G5, which was the successor to the G4 MDD. Because this was the final G4, this was also the final machine to have the classic oven door mechanism, which was introduced in this exact form with the Power Mac G3 Blue and White, another machine that we've covered quite a lot on the channel. So let's just open the door right now. And the nice thing about the MDD in particular is we can pretty much guess the CPU by taking one look at the heatsink. So let's have a closer look inside, and I can already pretty much guarantee what model this is from here just by looking at it. So here we are with a closer look at the internals. And as you can see, this is pretty much stock. No expansion cards. It's always interesting to see when you get these used machines, what's been upgraded, what's been modified. This one looks 100% stock. We have got what appears to be the original Hitachi drive back there. I can just about see from here with the Apple stamp on it. Just the one drive in this dual hard drive bay here. Of course, you can get another 2 drives under here in the MDD. I always absolutely loved this case design. They redid the internals. Well, every element of the internals was changed from the Quicksilver. The G3 Blue and White through to the Quicksilver, minimal internal arrangement configuration changes. It all pretty much stayed the same with just minor tweaks, obviously different motherboard revisions. But the location of the hard drives, the location of the optical drives, the size of the power supply physically, that all remained the same all the way through. And then when the mirror drive door model came out, everything changed. They completely flipped the orientation of the motherboard. So with this motherboard design, the PCI slots align at the back of the case here at the top. But as you can see, they introduced quite a strange power supply form factor, which is just sort of long and very, very thin, as opposed to the more standard PC power supply, boxy cube kind of shape at the back here, to allow the space for the expansion cards to sit alongside the power supply when the lid is closed. But it all came at a bit of a sacrifice. So these power supplies were a little on the unreliable side, not massively so, not huge problems. People weren't changing them constantly, but they are notoriously a little less reliable than previous Power Mac G4s. And we may come across that today, you know, especially now, years and years later. We might press that power button, it might just go pop, which would be a little bit of a shame, because I know for sure I don't have another MDD power supply handy without butchering my own top of the line 1.42 gigahertz model. But yeah, we'll just cross our fingers for that one. So that was definitely a little bit of a known thing at the time, the less reliable power supplies. Also the louder power supplies in general, because we've got a tighter space, smaller fans pushing more air. And these machines were nicknamed the wind tunnel because the power supply and the system fan are both very loud. The refresh, the Firewire 800 refresh, did quieten them down a little bit. But we definitely don't have a Firewire 800 refresh here because there is no Firewire 800 port on the back. And I know you guys can't see that because I don't have a light around here, but we just have the Firewire 400. And in fact, the label that says the spec is right there. I like to have a little bit of a surprise, so I haven't looked at the label, but this is what I like to do. There were 3, potentially 4 main heatsink designs for the MDD. You've got this guy, which is like a solid heatsink. You've got one that has a lot more densely populated fins, but they're quite flexible. And then there's the one with the copper heatsink, the top of the line model. So just by looking at this very large, very rigid heatsink, I know that we've got potentially an 867 megahertz, 1 gigahertz or 1.25 gigahertz machine, single 1.25. And if that's the case, then we've got a very interesting model here, which is quite cool. Let's take a little look at the RAM live on camera here. I'm just going to pop these out. I can tell by the GPU it's stock. That is the Radeon 9000. I'd recognize it a mile off. Let's just pull out this memory. Ooh, so we might have an upgrade here. Okay, hard to say. This is a 256 meg stick, and I'm presuming then this is also a 256 meg stick. No, it's not. It is a 512, I could just about make out on there. So 512 and 256, so 768 megs of RAM, which is nice. Yeah, we'd be able to install Leopard on this thing if we want to. I think Leopard will install on anything from 512, so that's nice. I was expecting 256 in here, or I guess when I saw the 2 sticks, I thought we might have 512. I wouldn't expect the 768 megs, so that's really cool. These will take up to 2 gigs, so you'll get 512 in each slot. So what's nice about this is if we wanted to upgrade this to 2 gig, we'd only need to source 3 other sticks of 512. There we go, there's the RAM back in. And as I was popping that back in, I thought I was quite confident when I said that was a Radeon 9000 Pro. But I'm also a little bit rusty, so if that isn't a 9000 Pro, then I will definitely admit to that very soon when we check out the About This Mac section. But yeah, I'm pretty sure, but I've just had a moment here and kind of thought, maybe it isn't. But I'm pretty sure it is. And also, I've got a little bit of a relationship with this card, because back in the day when I used to fiddle with these machines all the time, the one upgrade that was almost impossible to afford was the GPU. So you could put faster drives in here, you could put more RAM, you could put in your USB 2.0 cards and all the upgrades, but replacing the GPU, particularly in the MDD, was quite problematic because there were very few cards that worked with the machine, and you would often need to buy a flashed card on eBay or attempt to flash a card yourself if you had the resources to do so, which was normally a PC that could take an AGP graphics card like this, and also you would need a way of displaying video alongside that, so either a PCI graphics card accompanying it or some form of onboard graphics in order to do the necessary duties on that PC to flash the card. There were tutorials on that back in the day, but it was all very high effort and a little bit sketchy. So obtaining a GPU upgrade was definitely not easy for these. It was a little bit easier for the older G4s and even the Quicksilver as well. But I'm not sure what it's like these days. It could even be more difficult now to find a GPU, because I know there's more scarcity of parts and even the machines themselves on eBay these days, because so much time has passed. We've kind of we've progressed past that point where people are clearing out their offices now and still have one of these in the cupboard. You know, around early 2010s, that was something that happened a lot. People had got a couple of new fleets of machines in, and then the kind of early to mid noughties PowerPC machines were being phased out. They were finding their way out of storage cupboards, or they were in a corner for a while and someone listed them and there were loads and loads available. Now there's way fewer results when you search, because when I picked these up, I had a little search just to familiarize myself with the market and see what was going on with Power Macs generally on the used market today. Just as I was closing up the door and repositioning myself, it already sounds like we fired up this machine in here, because my network rack behind me is just ramped up to the next kind of cooling level. It is absolutely boiling in here. We've just started this little heatwave spell type thing in the UK, so yeah, roasting. But before we power this up and add to the heat in the room, I'd just like to kind of take a trip down memory lane and look at where this sits in terms of history. It's very easy these days to forget where certain machines did land in the timeline and what things were like generally for the Mac scene and for computers in general in the consumer, prosumer, professional space back in the day. Obviously, this is a high-end professional workstation tower. This is not a consumer machine, but even so, we can look at certain technologies in here which are definitely a little surprise, because it is certainly not as modern as the timeless design makes it appear. So the Power Mac G4 predates serial ATA. SATA wasn't added for drive interfacing until the Power Mac G5. That is a big one. We were still on ATA here for the optical drive bus and the hard drive bus. So all IDE disks, unless you installed an expansion card that allowed connection via SATA or SCSI. SCSI was quite a common PCI upgrade for these machines, especially late 90s, very early noughties. A lot of people still relying on both internal and external SCSI devices. But that did start to kind of fall away by the later model G4s and early G5s. SATA then, cards became available later on to almost retrofit these machines with serial ATA drives, which were a fair bit quicker and more readily available in larger capacities later on. So it was a very popular upgrade for people that were dragging these on right up through years sort of 2008, 2009, when they were really starting to show their age. For the actual blood and guts of the machine, the CPU, this is a G4 machine, which at the time was a blazingly fast chip, but became very, very slow in comparison to later chips very quickly. If you think about it in terms of acceleration of machine speed today, it isn't even in the same league as what was happening in the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s. This guy came out, the mirror drive door Power Mac, one of the quickest machines on the planet, blazing fast G4, and then in just about 3 years' time, we were already sat with Core 2 Duos in our MacBooks and iMacs that could outperform this guy in just 3 to 4 years. Absolutely bonkers, it's crazy. I've spoken about it a lot and how the acceleration generally in desktop and mobile computing has slowed down tremendously, and naturally so. We've reached a point where we have enough speed, the majority of us have what we need, and there are loads of other factors involved, but this comes directly from a time of very, very fast innovation, especially in terms of CPUs. The RAM in here is indeed DDR, but we are still a good couple of years away from DDR2, so a much slower RAM speed in general. Graphics, we are stuck with AGP graphics and any AGP graphics card upgrades, and they were notoriously difficult to find back in the day. Like I said, it wasn't until the very last revision of the G5 that we saw PCIe graphics in the desktop Mac Tower. Full-length 64-bit PCI slots are here, but they are, of course, not the quickest by later standards and PCIe. I/O-wise, we're looking at USB 1.1. This predates USB 2.0, although USB 2 cards are a very common upgrade. As you've seen on my channel over the years, nearly every Power Mac that's crossed my path, I've stuck a USB 2 card in it because it's just a very cheap and simple upgrade that actually allows you to get stuff in and out of the machine nice and quickly from USB drives, external hard drives and things. But for that purpose, back in the day, of course, everybody used FireWire. So FireWire was very much in its heyday when this machine was around. I myself was an avid FireWire user back in the day, and I still do miss certain things about the interface even to today. Very popular for, of course, importing digital video from mini DV tape camcorders and cameras, external drives, even early iPods, daisy chaining many devices off one FireWire port. A very nice interface and used for pretty much everything that wasn't a keyboard or mouse or very, very small USB accessory. Things like external floppy drives, which were still floating around at the time, they were often USB, especially after the boom of the iMac G3, where external USB Mac compatible floppy drives were quite popular because at the time it was quite a bold move for Apple to remove the floppy drive. Okay, I could go on and on. Let's just try and fire up the machine. So over here I have got a cinema display, quite handily because I've been testing a few other bits and bobs recently. Yeah, let's get this hooked up to the cinema display. We'll get the keyboard and mouse that came with the bundle up here as well, and I'm just now desperate to press that power button. So everything is connected and ready to go. These cinema displays, they don't fully match the G4 towers, although it's not crazy uncommon to see these two together, because I believe that the cinema displays were announced in 2004, and these guys were made up until 2003, so we're not talking worlds apart. But the older studio displays or first cinema displays definitely look a little bit more at home with the case design. The Pro mouse would have definitely have come with the tower as well as the keyboard. All of these have started to yellow by now. In fact, they've been yellowing for years and years. This keyboard is not to be confused with the newer USB keyboard. These don't tend to yellow as much. But they do have a fixed angle and USBs on the back, whereas these older Apple Pro keyboards have USBs on the side. They came in graphite as well, and they have an adjustable angle thing on the bottom. This is in the upright position now, but yeah, there are a few subtle differences there between the keyboards. I always preferred the later design, but they both feel pretty nasty by today's standards if you're used to lovely modern mechanical keyboards. Okay, enough talk. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Amazing. So as you saw, when I pushed that power button, the power light kind of went out a little bit and then it came back. It definitely fired up. I heard the disc spin up, even though you guys probably can't hear anything past. Look at that. You guys probably can't hear anything above my network rack, but the machine has indeed booted. It has indeed booted, which is absolutely brilliant. I say it's booted, it has fired up, because obviously we've got a kernel panic. It's probably going to do this every single time, but we will try a second time without any changes or fixes. First of all, let's try her again. And as you can see, now we've got a bit of a charge there in the PSU. When we press the power button, it illuminated fully straight away, as opposed to fading out. Okay, kernel panic again. Let's just give her one more try. Go on, third time lucky. And you can tell we've got OS 10 of some variety on here, as opposed to OS 9. There we go with the grey Apple screen. Ooh, slightly different that time. Slightly different. Third time lucky, eh? So this particular panic tells us a couple of things. It looks like we've got some kind of storage issue, potentially with the drive or the RAM. We do have Tiger 10.4.11 installed. Could simply be something with the file system. Might just need to reinstall, or this drive might be faulty. Maybe even just reseating the RAM and reseating the IDE cable will do the trick. But first of all, let's see if she'll boot into safe mode before we go cracking the door open. So let's try safe mode by holding shift at startup. I'm pretty sure it's shift. See if we get anywhere. Something I've noticed about this, even though I've got a lot of noise behind me coming from my rack, I'm pretty sure I'm listening to a quieter MDD here. I remember the sound of the original model, but maybe I'm just in an environment where I can't fully hear it at the moment, because I do have a lot of other machines in the room making a lot of noise. But it definitely sounds quieter than the original MDD to me. Lack of Firewire 800 port on the back, in combination with the way the machine sounds and the heatsink that I see on it, I think we have the quite peculiar single 1.25 2003 model here, which is a machine I've had before, I think. I do have vague memories of coming across that one at one stage on the channel years ago. I've had nearly all models of G4s over the years, especially of Quicksilvers and MDDs. Not so much the original G4 case designs. Yeah, I definitely do think this could be the 2003. We might have curved the initial panic by forcing a safe mode boot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be able to boot directly up into the OS at all. But we'll wait it out a little bit longer. This mouse, I'm just looking at it now, is looking quite grubby. It would be nice to clean up quite a lot of this. Keyboard's filthy as well, but these keyboards are a little bit of a nightmare to clean. Not quite as bad as the later ones, the one I just showed you. But yeah, these are very difficult and time consuming to clean up. And obviously all the, that's horrible. All the crap just, quite literally, just collects in the bottom of the case, which is nasty. I love this sticker here. Mentions the eject key. I expect that was a lot of service calls back in the day. Apple customer care. It's like, hey, how do I open my CD drive? Especially people coming from PCs where the button's directly on the front. The thing is with the noise level of this MDD, I can't even directly compare it to mine because I believe I have modified the fans in mine. Have I? Maybe. I can't remember. It's been over 10 years since I played with my dual 1.42 gigahertz MDD. It's actually something that I've been meaning to dust off for a very long time. Because we got the G3 all finished and sorted, I wanted to do that to my G4 as well, and eventually have one G3, one G4, and one G5 that were sort of go-to, nicely upgraded, crazy Power Mac machines. Hopefully that's something I'll get to one day. But it feels like at the moment I'm holding on to more G5 parts than I am G4 parts. But then again, it's already quite well spec'd, that other machine, so I don't really know what else I could do with it. Okay, yeah, I'm waiting this out. It's a little bit long now, so let's shut this down. And right here, live on camera, we will crack open the door, because that's one of the nicest things about this machine. All of a sudden it's become very quiet in here. Maybe this isn't the quiet model. Here we go. Okay, nice one. So what we can do in here after unplugging the power cable, and I did dig out a proper Apple kind of translucent IEC cable for this. Right, so we can do a little bit of reseating. The IDE connections on the board. Reseat U. This one is for optical. Because it's a little bit of a pain to unplug and replug from that position, we're not going to reseat that. And you can see that we're reading the data anyway. It can see the OS on the drive. So we're just going to give that a little push. And now we're just going to reseat the RAM. And if this doesn't work, we'll try removing one of the RAM sticks and then the other one. If we still can't get any joy, just reseating the RAM there. And let's see if we get anything. Okay, that's one of the things, oh, whoops. That's one of the things I love about working on these. You can just crack right into them and see what they do. Tell you what we could do as well, we could do a PRAM reset on this because we're not getting a bong. So let's do that. If it kernel panics now, let's do a PRAM reset. Okay, we got a panic straight away. I might yank one of those sticks of RAM out, to be honest. Might boot then. Or we've got a dodgy drive. So Command, Option, P and R. There's no shift in there, is there? Command, Option. There could be a shift in there. Let's just try this first. Aha, there we go. There's our PRAM reset. We'll do it one more time. Keep holding. Do you remember back in the day, all of the advice was do it for 3 bongs? But you've essentially reset it with 1 time, so let's just do 2. There we go. So we have our lovely crystal clear bong. Great thing about these towers, it's when they were still putting quite massive speakers as the internal speakers. So yeah, it doesn't mess around the speaker in the front of this thing, or the Quicksilver for that matter. That was a solid bong. 5-star bong. And it being a PowerPC Mac, it bongs out of the headphone jack, obviously, or the speaker jack, so that's nice as well. Okay. That did not work, but we did make good progress because we retrieved our bong, which is lovely. I'm on camera, so I'm going to do that. Only joking. Need to do that anyway. Obviously, it doesn't mean that I don't forget every time. Let's take out this stick of RAM. Here we go. Let's go again. There's our solid bong. The only thing that I don't love about doing this is I can hear this drive spin up. And the drive sounds fine, but we're interrupting it several times. And I don't like this whole, you know, this is an old machine now. I don't like all this restarting and messing around constantly. But I am more suspicious of the RAM than I am the hard drive at this stage anyway. From my overall experience, really, as long as it sounds okay. And what do you know? We got a little bit further. I thought she was going to boot then. Let's see what it does. Let's try it again. How weird was that? It'd be worth, this is the 256 stick. Might be worth trying just this stick as opposed to the 512. We'll have a little bit of a rejig in a minute. I just hope we don't kill it, you know. I always think on, off, on, off, on, off on these older machines. Just feel like it's gonna die. Yeah, this is fairly loud. I'm not sure my previous assumption was correct. It's got a distinct whine to it, you know. Ah, did you see it got further that time? Last time it panicked at just a little bit of the blue bar, but it seemed to go all the way across. The thing is, guys, the drive seems great. It's snappy because she's spinning right up and loading the OS really quickly. It's obviously Tiger. We know that from the previous era and also the fact that we're now loading into Tiger. Let's see what it does now. Nice thing is as well, if we do swap in just 256 megs of RAM, that is the minimum requirement for Tiger, I believe. So we'll still be fine to boot with just 256. But let's see what it does. Ah, okay. Okay. Right then, it's more random than consistent there at the login screen section. Let's pull the power on that. And let's quickly swap in 256 megs. Okay. Wow. Let's go. What's happened now? Has my DVI port suddenly... Oh, monitor was off. That was weird. What are you going to do now, computer? Different behavior again. Okay, I can hear a reading from the disk heavily now. This is what I love about these old computers. You can kind of get yourself in tune with them. She's reading from the drive. I'm gonna place my bet that it's not gonna kernel panic. I'm just putting it right out there now. She's gonna boot just fine. Come on, baby. Yeah, desktop. Slow as a dog because 256 and a fully upgraded Tiger install. So we're right on the edge here of what's acceptable. Still reading heavily from the disk. Still very confident that it's not going to panic. Starting to load in some of the UI. Here we go, menu bar. And as soon as we see the dock, we'll kind of be able to see how stock or not this install is. Getting some pop-up. Okay, maybe our dock is hidden. Let's start moving the mouse and seeing what... Oh! No wonder she needed to load in. Oh my gosh. This has some people's items on it, doesn't it? Bloody hell, look at that. We'll check it all out and see if there's anything of interest on here. Might be some games or something. That would be really cool. Also, what's super lovely about doing this is we get to kind of guess what the machine was used for. We get to see all the different file types. If there's heavy video files, heavy Photoshop files, whatever. So yeah, let's start having a little nose. But before we do, we need to check out the spec. So have we got mouse? Yes, we have. Your computer has restarted after macOS quit unexpectedly. We know that. Okay. Date and time. We know that. Ancient battery. Machine been unplugged for a long, long time. Suitcase Fusion. What is that then, guys? Okay, so Suitcase Fusion for Mac is a professional font management application that allows designers and creative professionals to activate, deactivate, organize, and preview massive font libraries. Very cool. Very cool. I'm not a designer, so there is not a lot I know about that, but let's hop in. Oh man, look at it. Look at it. Let me just enable some accessibility quickly. I want to show you guys the spec, and also I need to enable it anyway. Oh yeah, we're universal access, aren't we? Not accessibility. Good. And whilst we're here, let's make our life a little bit easier with this mouse scenario. That's a little bit better. God, man, it's so poor using this keyboard and mouse. Okay, we have the glorious 1.25 gigahertz PowerPC G4 machine. Note it doesn't say dual. So this is indeed the 2003 model, a very, very unique model of Power Mac G4 MDD. This machine was offered as a cheaper alternative to the Power Mac G5. So I want to say we're talking June, announced in June, released in July, potentially, of 2003. The G5 had started to roll off the shelves. The original G5 model with all of its bells and whistles, glorious machine, of course, big announcement at the time. But as a cheaper alternative, you could get the single 1.25 gigahertz Power Mac G4. There were BTO options on the machine, so you could bump up the CPU, I believe, whilst ordering through Apple Online, which I think remained until the end of life of the Power Mac G4. So this is very notable as being the last, I believe, native Mac desktop to be able to natively boot Mac OS 9. So a very, very popular Mac OS 9 machine for those who needed a brand new Mac OS 9 machine in 2003. Also super interesting that this is generally a newer machine than the G4 FireWire 800 model, which was the previous version, but this one ditches the FireWire 800 port. And by the sounds of it, goes back to the old cooling as well, because it is really loud. But I'm not 100% sure on that. Yeah, and this is default configuration. So they shipped with 256 megs of RAM, single 1.25 gigahertz CPU, and an 80 gig drive. Let's take a look. And as I mentioned earlier, when I was sharing my suspicions around whether it was this model we were dealing with, I have had one of these in the past, I believe. This looks like an 80 gig. Maybe the 80 in the model. Oh wait, that's the bloody DVD drive. Oh man, what am I like? Okay. Oh, there we go. Capacity 76 gig. Yeah, I could put that on the cutting room floor, but I'm just going to share with you what my kind of IMNC in his 30s brain is like versus IMNC in his late teenage years when I was playing with these machines. All right, sweet. So RW DVD. So this would be a combo drive, right? That stands for CD rewrite, DVD read. I believe it was a combo drive that came with these. It wasn't a super drive in them. And then the 80 gig drive. Yeah, lovely. And oh look, available 15.73 gig. This is nearly full. Nearly full. And I remember back in the day, the staggering difference, especially whilst using these machines later on with Leopard and with applications that had good multi-thread support. The single G4s feel like absolute dinosaurs versus the dual CPUs. I always said that right the way through, completely different beasts. So when you use these single G4 desktops, they feel a little bit like using an iBook or using a PowerBook. It's basically the same thing. But with a dual CPU G4 tower, it is then that next level above. You feel like you're kind of powerful enough to compete against the early G5s and maybe even outperform some of the early consumer Intel Macs. Because some of these G4s were tuned up lovely and high afterwards. You know, they were able to run the Pro software very, very well versus the early Intel machines before native versions for x86 were developed and things like that. But only for a very short window of time. Very, very quickly they become slow as dogs. Not over time of usage, but over the years that software and obviously hardware moves on. Rambling aside, let's have a look at some of the applications that's on here. Ah, yeah, man. We've got some classics. Here's this Suitcase Fusion app that I must admit I have never heard of. Mail, Safari, pretty standard. Quark Express. Photoshop CS2, Illustrator CS2. There's our lovely dashboard. Let's see if this person was a dashboard user or not. A little bit. That isn't stock dashboard, but also not heavily customized. Although, let's wait for it to load in because I don't recognize some of these widgets. Again, very, very rusty. I can't tell you off the top of my head what some of them are. What is this guy? Is this translate? This could be translate or conversion. Is this like converting weights and measures and things? Yeah, here we go. Cool. This is a conversion widget. We can convert all sorts of different things: currency, energy, temperature, time, length, weight, speed, and obviously select. So really good for currency conversions very quickly. When Tiger was around, you didn't turn to the web for everything like you do now. The web is so integrated into everything, even Spotlight. You know, you can type conversions into Spotlight now, or you can just whack them into Google. It wasn't quite like that back in 2003. It really wasn't. Or I guess Tiger, you know, we're looking at 2005, 6. Dictionary widgets, that's a stock widget, I believe. Calculator, clock, calendar, processes. Oh, okay. iStat, this person cared a little bit about what their machine was doing. A little bit nerdy around the edges, like us. Very cool. Some of you guys as well are going to shout at me for not blurring all these desktop icons. But the thing is, if we come across anything absolutely, you know, horrendous or incriminating or very personal or anything, then we simply don't show it. But looking at apps and just basic, you know, everyday named folders, this person was using their computer, what, 20 years ago last? So it, you know, yeah, it's just, it's part of history, isn't it? You know, really, we can all kind of say, if you don't want this to happen, then set a bloody password. InDesign, Bridge, Adobe Bridge. Always very boring and pointless in my eyes, but useful for those who know how to use it. Whoops-a-daisy, we've just launched Acrobat. Go away. Control-click, force-quit. We don't want to use our precious RAM. Acrobat Distiller, Epson Scan. We have Office here, which looks like Office 2004, or maybe even earlier. Same icons as 2004. Dreamweaver for all of your website building needs. iTunes, relatively up-to-date version there. TextEdit, iCal. Stuff It Expander, definitely very, very useful back in the day. God, that's a blast from the past. Preview, QuickTime System Preferences. Paper sizes, handy resource, clearly a designer of some sort here. Shortcuts now to, network shares for, look. Older 160 gig external network attached storage or server of some kind there. It looks like that we will not be able to connect to, so should give us an error. Look, there we go. This server may not exist. Heck yeah, nice. This must have been used in some kind of office or design environment that had centralized storage, or just a very, very tech-savvy home user. We've clearly got a lot stored on the desktop, but first, before we kind of delve through there and see what's happening, let's have a look at the drive, because this person either just didn't use their folder structure at all in Finder, or judging by the fact that they're not in the sidebar and we've got a lot of scattered files on the disk, file organization was not this person's strong point. Yeah, we are gonna make our first irreversible change to this install. We're gonna arrange some things neatly, just so we can look at things. But yeah, we've got no shortcuts here in the sidebar, so the likelihood of them using their documents, music, and movies folders properly is quite low. So you can see that this person used their pictures folder and their desktop folder as late as October. Yeah, April 2013 there on the pictures. Desktop, October 2013. Aligns with roughly the kind of very, very last usable era of PowerPC. No more file modifications were made after these dates. So it had a good life, had a good 10 years life. Whether this person used it from new or not, who knows? So what I'm going to do now is, instead of showing loads of personal files and stuff on camera, I'll just have a quick browse through, see if there's anything of note from a tech-savvy kind of content perspective, such as what project files are on here the most, if there are any games or anything like that installed, any other interesting applications. And then I'll give you guys a summary, as opposed to just sitting here endlessly scrolling through somebody else's data, because that's not fantastic. So this machine was used very heavily for work, all work-related stuff on here, just very, very few personal files like music, a couple of albums in iTunes, couple of albums in iPhoto, and then, yeah, just all work stuff, folders and folders and folders of client work, lots of design stuff, and all very, very local to me. This has not traveled very far at all. There was a second user account on here. It's set to automatically log into the first account I was on. This one looks to be super empty. And as you can see, yeah, it's really stock. I've just booted into this one now. Neither of them have passwords. It's so stock even that the old iTunes version is in here. But I did find a couple of cool things I wanted to show you guys on the other account, and maybe they're on here as well if apps are installed for all users, which it looks like they are. Yeah, we've got the full Office suite. Google Earth is on here. Internet Explorer is still on here. Thunderbird for email. Opera as another secondary browser. And what else was cool? There was a few more in the other user account I want to say. Something I wanted to point out to you guys. Never mind. But yeah, this one looks super stock, super empty. Nothing going on in here at all, really. So yeah, that's cool. A lovely stock Tiger install, and this is the first time I've clicked around Tiger for a long time as well, guys, a really long time. So definitely a win that we've got this Power Mac up and running. We have what appears to be a dodgy stick of RAM, but we don't just throw it away straight away. It could just be one of those strange phenomenons where it will work on a second try or a different slot or something like that. So we'll put that over there because the difference between 256 and 768 is colossal. We'd get a fair snappier experience using Tiger with 256. Shutting this guy down. As soon as it shuts down, let's swap it out for the iMac because I do have time to quickly test the iMac. I am most intrigued to see, first and foremost, if the iMac boots. And the second most intriguing thing will be, does it belong to the same person? Do I have a snippet of one individual's Apple history here? And then what machine did they upgrade to after the MDD? All very interesting questions. Okay, so I've quickly swapped the iMac onto the desk. Now, I do definitely want to show you guys around the iMac, even though probably the vast majority of you have seen one of these a million times. I'd still like to go around it and talk about the significance and historical importance of certain things around the case and the outside of the machine in terms of design. But that's going to have to wait because that could be a long ramble and I just want to see if it works. But before we do plug it in, I've got the kettle lead sat here because I want to plug it in live on camera just in case something does explode. We can tell a couple of things straight off about this. So first of all, the easiest thing that's most obvious right away is the tray load mechanism for the optical drive here. So it's not a slot load. That tells us that it's an original iMac. It is either the first gen iMac or the second-ish gen iMac, even though they're all considered the same in terms of model identifier, which I believe is just like iMac 1 or whatever. There were actually 4 revisions, lettered revisions. The naming and model identification of the Apple products took a while to kind of simmer down and become normal to what we know today. So with these, a little bit like the G3 Blue and White Tower, it's a little bit of a pain in the bum to try and figure out what you've got. But it's relatively easy here because we definitely don't have an original Bondi Blue iMac because this is a grape color. We can see that straight away. So we don't have a revision A or B because revisions A or B were just in Bondi Blue. This is a grape, so this is part of the 5 flavors revision, which was the 1999 revision of the iMac G3. So still tray load, pre-slot load, which came later in the year, but these introduced all of the fun colors. So this is grape, so you had grape, blueberry, strawberry, tangerine, and lime, I believe. And this is where the famous Yum poster comes from. These beautiful colors of the iMac. And the colors are very different to the later models because these are more translucent as opposed to transparent. The colors pop in a completely different way. And I have personally seen a very, very few of these in person over the years. I've seen far more of the slot load versions, both in my own collection and out and about. But I have to admit that this grape is absolutely gorgeous. Now, I do want to show you around the machine, like I said. For that, I'm going to have to move my video lights and bits and bobs to make it look a bit nicer. It needs a clean, so we'll do that as well. But I just want to see if it works. One other quick big difference here on the front between the original Bondi Blue model revision A and B, between C or D revision with these 5 flavors coloring models, is we don't have an infrared port. So the very first early iMac had infrared here next to the speaker for data transfer and things like that. That did not stand the test of time and has been ditched on these models, along with other things that I'll show you when we look around the machine. But yeah, it's just glorious to behold. It really is. Weighs a ton. It's surprisingly massive. Every time I pick up an iMac G3, I am surprised, but they just don't get old. They're absolutely timeless. This is the Mac that saved the Apple that we have today. So let's plug it in, live on camera, with all of my failings, as I knock something off the back of the desk there. Oh man, what orientation is this? Okay, it's plugged in. We've got a click. There's definitely electricity there. Now, before I press the power button, I just want to say that I am very, very happy and of course very grateful to the Mac gods that the G4 MDD works. But I do hope that this guy works because out of the two, if we had a faulty one, I would have preferred that to be the Tower because that's more easily fixed. It's a machine that I'm much more familiar with, and basically if this guy doesn't work, it could be a colossal pain to get it working. So please everybody cross your fingers. Let's pray to again the lovely Mac gods that it works. 3, 2, 1. orange power light or red. Is that normal? They were green on the early slot loads, later white. Does that mean error, or is that the colour that they are on the tray load? I can hear the hard drive. I don't know if we're going to get anything. I don't even know. No. The CRT hasn't sprung into life at all. Press the button. Okay. Tray comes out. But that is a button directly on the optical drive, isn't it? So I don't think that really tells us that the system is working at all. That just tells us that the drive has power, because we're not using a system eject button. We're using the physical eject button. But that's cool that that opens. And I'd never really thought about this before, but it is a laptop CD drive. I'd always imagined them like 5 1/4, but of course they're not. There's not enough space. And I know that the hard drive is in the same stack, or at least it is in the slot load. Not sure if it is. I'm not very familiar with this model. This is a bit of a shame. It really is, because there's potentially a couple of things happening here. The fan is spinning and the drive is spinning, but the drive is not sounding like it's reading anything. The CRT hasn't actually powered on from what I can see. It's got no life. So that could be either the fact that there's something wrong with it, or what this looks like to me more is the fact that the computer hasn't powered up properly enough to tell the CRT to turn on, because this is an all-in-one. It's not just like a CRT monitor that works independently from the machine. The machine and the monitor are tightly bound to the state that the machine says, hey, I'm ready for picture, fires up the CRT and can control the brightness through the system and all this, that and the other. So it does look like, whatever reason that it's not working, whether it's a power supply issue and things aren't getting the proper power, or whether it's a computer side thing, so a logic board side thing, it's not booting properly and it's not telling the CRT to fire up, I would say that that's more likely. Yeah, I hear the heads of the drive move just once on boot. So like a quick reset. Drive is spinning right now. Fans are running, but she's not doing anything, which is sad. It is sad, but not surprising for such an old iMac. Whilst this just sits here for a minute, just in case it does happen to fire up, which I don't think it will, but we may as well have a small chat. I believe, historically, the original Revision A iMac was the most flaky. First generation product. Lots of effort gone into very, very clever design and integration. A very sleek and modern system for the time, but also came to market very quickly. So Revision A did have a few notable defects that were perfected or remedied, I guess, in Revision B. Hardware bugs that were solved for Rev B, the Bondi Blue. And then C and D came along with these new colors, and D, Revision D, had a faster processor speed. So I believe these came in 266 megahertz or 333. So Rev D bumped the processors up to 333 megahertz. Very, very slow compared to later PowerPC, G3 and G4 standards. So these were kind of like dogs very, very early on, but for a small window of time when they were released, and for a few years after, they were lovely machines. But generally speaking, out of the tray loads, the original Rev A model is the most unreliable, obviously. But then when we compare slot load versus the tray iMacs generally, I believe the overall reliability of the slot load iMacs is better. I know there are a few people out there that are very, very hands-on and have a lot of expertise, specifically in iMac G3s. There are people that exist out there in the world, and there may even be some of you watching this video that know so much about these systems, because the reality of these G3s at the time was they were installed in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units into schools and colleges back in the day. So there were labs and classrooms full of them. So there were several, I guess several hundred, several thousand dedicated service engineers at the time, simply to go around fixing iMacs in schools. because they were such a widely adopted machine. So those people, you tend to see if someone's doing an iMac project online, maybe on Reddit, or they're posting on YouTube or whatever, there'll always be somebody there in the comment section or in the thread that's saying, that's basically giving all of this absolutely glorious inside information about iMac G3s, stuff that someone like myself wouldn't know because I wasn't hands-on with these machines back in the day. But there are certain kind of nuanced things and very interesting things about the history of the iMac G3 that people like that know. And I think finding that sort of information online is very fascinating. One that springs to mind is opening the case. A lot of people tend to think that it's the age of the machine that leads to the cracking and the almost impossible nature of tearing these things apart to get into them, because it is a brutal process to tear the case off. But apparently, according to service engineers at the time, the cases were like that from day one, nearly impossible to get into, and you almost had to break the clips holding them onto these tray load models in order to get in. Which is fascinating, you know, it really is. But they're just some of the little things that I remember reading. But I personally have no first-hand experience of iMac G3s. For the sort of era that I'm from and the area that I grew up in, these were not plentiful in the schooling system around here, like they might have been in sort of more densely populated areas, more forward-thinking areas. And I think specifically outside of the UK, maybe, yeah, there were a lot of iMac G3s here as well, but we're really talking US, where they made a huge wave in schools. Just as a sort of little bit of context, in school, in my really early years, we still had a BBC Micro in the classroom when I was in my first year of school. So that kind of puts it into context. Even though I was born way after the release of the BBC Micro, it stuck around for a long time, and then from there it was Windows 95 and then Windows 98 machines. Never an iMac, never a Mac at all in my schooling system until I got to college. And in college, I did in fact see iMac G3s, which is cool, not in use, but just in storage, because they'd already made the Intel transition by then when I was in college. So yeah, this is doing sod all, which is a shame and a little bit anticlimactic after the Power Mac G4 success. The exciting thing here, I think, is even though this doesn't work, this kind of opens the door for more opportunity. So when a system works, especially something as cool and retro as this, you'd feel kind of wrong, I think, now all these years later, parting it out or modifying it or doing something with it because it's working. We kind of have a little choice here now. This isn't working, so we could kind of do anything with it. Now, at this stage, I've got absolutely no idea. Obviously, there are all sorts of things you can do with these iMacs. Would I want to do a project where I modify it and put something maybe a bit newer in the case? I don't know. Do I want to go to the effort and time of getting it up and running? I'm not sure. If it was more of a surface level issue, like if we were getting power and life to the CRT, but we weren't seeing an operating system, then I would be all up for trying to diagnose that and then getting it sorted, maybe replacing a drive, reinstalling the OS, that sort of thing. But what we're experiencing here actually looks pretty dead. And the first ever slot load model that I got way back, the first car boot sale iMac that I found, because this is the third car boot sale iMac, believe it or not. The very first slot load that I found had a similar issue, and I can't remember if I ever got that one up and running. I don't think I did. The second one I found, the graphite machine, that worked from day one, and that was my sort of go-to iMac every time I wanted to use an iMac G3 on the channel for whatever purpose. For instance, when we messed around with that iSub and things, we used the iMac G3 to do that because it had the Harman Kardon speakers built in and OS 9 installed, and it was the perfect machine to use for that. This guy, it might need a fair bit, or it could be a more simple fix that I'm making out. I'm not sure, but I do need to do research, and it would also be interesting to see if any iMac guys want to post down below if you've got iMac G3 experiences of these Rev C and D models particularly. The grape is a gorgeous color. If I had to choose any color, grape would definitely be high on my list, and it is lovely. And I do want to show you guys around the machine more in depth, and we could clean up the physical case as well. So I'm going to call it a day for today because it is roasting in here, but we'll pick this up soon to take a deeper look, and then maybe after some research and a little bit of thinking, I'll have more inspiration to see what we'll do with the machine itself. Do we fix it up? Do we modify it? Or do we just leave it as it is and maybe marvel at its lovely design for a short while and then sell it to somebody who has the time and expertise to fix it? Who knows, but let's see. But today's positive, we have two beautiful vintage Macs for just £25, an absolute deal. Not only is it a good deal, it is a local find, which is always a special find. And we have a working Power Mac, and the world is also our oyster with that one. So yeah, I'll see you in a couple of days for some more iMac goodness, and we'll figure out what we're gonna do with it. Okay, so I'm now back, and I've had a little think about this iMac, and potentially there are a couple of things we can try. I'm not just going to call it dead and end the video, but this is failing at a very early stage. So the fact that we can hear the hard drive spin up is good, obviously, but it doesn't attempt to seek at all. No bong, no video, seemingly absolutely no power or life to the CRT whatsoever. So it's failing very, very early on, which suggests to me a major component failure. But we can try resetting the PMU and maybe reseating the memory and other little bits if we want to go that far. So we're going to do that shortly. But first of all, I want to give you guys a proper look around the tray load original iMac here. Original iMac case design, or rather Rev C or D, which is very, very similar to the original, just slightly more vibrant and with a couple of subtle differences. So I've already mentioned the missing infrared port on the front. That was present on the original. However, we still have the two headphone jacks here on the front, which is really cool because in schools or even siblings at home, you could share the audio each with your own set of headphones. Very nice. Power button on the front. Obviously the slot, or the tray rather, for the optical drive. iMac in glorious big letters here right on the front, and the lovely 15-inch CRT, the original CRT, because the CRT was famously re-engineered for the slot load models, which allowed them to remove the EMI shield. I'll show you in a second. And that kind of enabled the later designs with the more transparency and things. But yeah, this is the original model with EMI shield, of course. One thing I love about these iMacs, and this retained throughout the entire series, I believe, with the colourful iMacs, is the foot at the bottom here, which is in its upright position at the moment. This matches the colour of the rest of the machine, so it looks very cool. You've got subtle hints to the colour around, so even if you're not looking at the back, the sides, the top, you can see the grape here on the eject button, on the speaker grills, and on the foot on the bottom. The speakers in these early ones, I've actually never heard in person. The speakers on the later iMacs, the slot loads, are very impressive. They're the Harman Kardon design speakers. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, you could pair that with the iSub to remove all of the low frequency from the internal speakers and then extend the low frequency to a subwoofer externally through USB. Absolutely whomping sound out of that system. Very similar to early sound sticks, just on a little bit of a smaller scale because they were just single drivers either side of the iMac. No idea what the original speakers sound like. They're a little bit smaller. Just looking at the grills here, I have to presume that they'll be less impressive because it was one of the mentioned upgrades on the slot load. But yeah, if we got this working, I'd be intrigued to listen to a song or a film or something through these speakers just to hear what they sound like. Other than that, that is everything on the front. I believe this gap here is for the microphone. Correct me if I'm wrong, pretty sure that's what that is, just hiding at the top of the monitor there. Some of these front bezels you see these days can be quite cracked and nasty looking. This one actually looks okay. Looking at it closely, I don't see anything obvious here. The only thing we do have is discoloration generally around the machine. I'll show you on the top in a minute because that's kind of where it's worst. I think we've got dirt sitting in between the two layers, so there's sort of like a polycarbonate layer behind here, or an ABS plastic layer behind the bezel. and then this kind of see-through bit here, and I think there's dirt sat in between the two layers. There's dirt here on the optical drive. You can see the optical drive was definitely heavily used on this iMac, because where people have gone to reach for the eject button is noticeably dirty, but we might be able to clean that up. Same with the power button. It all just looks quite ingrained, but who knows? We'll give it a wipe over and we'll see how far we get. So let's spin it around to this side. If we do this, you should start to see the color pop. Check that out. It looks gorgeous. Absolutely stunning. So one of the first things you'll notice is the overall look of the iMac. Like I was mentioning, it's more translucent than transparent. Don't get me wrong, it's really see-through, the outer shell, but it is frosted in the sense that this is almost kind of rough. It's like sandblasted. It feels really nice to the touch. It's smooth, whereas the later iMacs are much more glossy when you touch them. So I guess less prone to fingerprints, but it does feel like an entirely different machine. I do have another iMac, but it would be extreme effort to bring it down here to do an A/B comparison. It's in the depths of the attic, and I can barely fit this on my desk anyway with all my other crud here. So yeah, I'll just put up some stills and that in the video comparing the iMacs. The overall shape as well, this one is deeper. The slot load became more stumpy. So this one is kind of longer at the back, which is really subtle, but also very interesting. You can see through here the EMI shield. You have the entire CRT covered with the shield inside. So this definitely isn't a sort of see-through computer. It's easy to kind of look back and think, oh, all the iMacs were see-through. You could see into the internals. Not quite, not really. They didn't become truly transparent until some of these special edition, the iMac DV special edition graphite, I believe 1999, and then the later Sage models, what was that red one called? Ruby as well, was completely see-through. But even the original slot load colors were sort of muted ever so slightly, but without the EMI shield, you could most definitely see all the inner workings, the CRT, absolutely everything. I personally absolutely love this look, and I much prefer it in person than I do in photographs. It just looks glorious. It's really nice. On the side here, we've got a sticky pad that we should be able to pry off and then clean up. I believe it's just stuck here anyway with adhesive. This would have most definitely been for some kind of external microphone or something similar. There were all sorts of accessories that people used to sort of stick on the side of their iMacs. Something else went here as well. We've got a bit of a sticker down here, which is an old pat test sticker. Let's see if I can make out the year of test on it. Okay, so next test is due July of 2008. So this was last tested July 2007. So that's pretty cool. That shows us that this was potentially in service for about 9, I guess, no, not quite 9, 8 years, 7 or 8 years. So very cool. And then potentially it was retired to an alternate home, which if it was obviously a home user, then they wouldn't be pat testing their iMac, but this was in some commercial setting until 2007 here. Or it was there later and they just stuck the pat test sticker on the plug, because that happened as well. That happens in my workplace. Sometimes they stick the stickers on the device, other times they stick the stickers on the plug top, and sometimes it looks like your device is out of date, but then if you look at the plug sticker or vice versa, then yeah, you realize it isn't. Over here to the right of the pat test sticker, which we can remove maybe when we do the cleaning. This is the IEC input, standard power connection, internal power supply in these of course, so you can just use a standard IEC kettle lead. These came with a specifically nice Apple-like designed cable. Unfortunately we do not have one, but we do have a close approximation. This is from a later Power Mac, but yeah, one of these goes straight in there. When I tested this in the previous clip, that's the cable that I used. And I'm going to swap angles here because we want to get a really good look at the side. One really cool thing about these tray load models is we have a door over the ports. The slot load completely abandoned the door, and rightly so. The door is a bit of a pain because it's meant to unhinge, and this one just falls straight off because the plastic is very tired, and I think it's even missing a portion. Yeah, it's snapped here, so there is no hinge anymore. But these doors used to just pop off generally anyway, and people would just leave them off because you want access to the ports. The case is kind of very distant here, so there's a big gap before the ports. You can tell the design is somewhat compromising in areas here. The ports are kind of miles away from where you'd actually want them. They're not right at the side of the machine, they're buried in there. But they did away with the doors and they cleaned up the entire port area much more with the slot loads. We have the ports here on the side, and one thing I love about this is we see the old kind of holographic diamond, hexagonal, whatever design here that was on various Apple things at the time. It was on the underside of the Puck mouse as well. I believe this kind of wallpapery design that they echoed in the actual wallpaper on the OS, I think, with these diamond shapes. They're not really diamonds, are they? They're more sort of triangles. Whatever this design is called anyway, they echoed that on the wallpaper in macOS 8 for these models, and each one had its own colour to match the colour of your iMac, which is very cool. This now looks super retro, and it was soon ditched, but yeah, for a little window of time, this design was on a lot of Apple stuff. As for the ports themselves, we are looking at a 3.5mm microphone and audio jack, 2 USB ports, USB 1.1 of course, Ethernet here. This would be 10100 on this model, way before gigabit. At this point, we're still a year and a half or so away from gigabit Ethernet even hitting the Power Mac series. So 10100 here on the side. And of course our modem. So customers would be connecting with a mixture of lots of dial-up modems in use, but in schools and colleges and places, Ethernet hooked up to a central network was also very common, but not so common in the home quite yet, unless you were really on the bleeding edge. In here as well, we have our very subtly placed here, you'd almost miss them, our reset and our interrupt buttons. These are pinhole buttons. This was the model where they ditched the mysterious slot that was here on the original iMac, the mezzanine slot, which inside the case corresponds with a little bit of an open space, an open area. There could have been room to develop small slot-in, almost PCI style cards here for the iMac. There was a additional slot on the motherboard, multi-pin connector, that was removed from later motherboards. I'm not sure if any exploited devices were taking advantage of that slot, but Apple were pretty swift to remove it anyway, meaning that all of the connections that you see on the machine now were the maximum amount of connections that you could get. There was no potential future increase of connectivity. You had no floppy drive, no zip drive, no easy way to attach any cards whatsoever, no FireWire. So quite limiting, especially when everybody was used to being able to store things on floppy disks, move them between machines. It could become quite expensive to hook up your iMac to everything that you needed in the modern world all of a sudden, but that's not really where the iMac shone. The iMac shone in simplicity originally. Later models added FireWire and whatnot, of course, and then the industry gradually moved on and people were able to connect to more devices, no problems at all. But in the really early days, it was a criticism of the machine that there weren't enough ways to connect to the outside world, or really weren't enough ways to connect to the inside world, the world on your desk. How do you back up your files? You know, this is way before mass online backup. You're not going to back up your entire hard disk over a 56k modem. Where would you back it up to? You're almost forced to buy some kind of USB external storage, which at the time would not have been cheap. And these early models didn't have CD or DVD burners, of course. So yeah, interesting to look back. But then that's a running theme with Apple. They do it time and time again. They are the first to push the boundaries. They are the first to remove things that the industry deem essential. And then gradually over time, they prove to us all that it wasn't essential all along and we can all move on. They keep pushing, and this machine was innovating in many ways at the time. If you're wondering about the door and the connections, there's two gaps. One quite large one here and one quite large one there. So even if you had everything connected, you could run all of the cable out the bottom of the door here. But that's a little bit fiddly and difficult. So you can see why people would just leave the door off. And I tell you one thing, guys, this old plastic, it may be like nearly 30 years old, but it's still quite strong. It's, yeah, it's not like cracking or anything. I thought there was a crack here, but it's just a bit of muck. There's definitely some signs of stress though, and the latch doesn't last, the hinge rather. Now in here is the sticker that tells us the spec, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and zoom up to it and we'll take a look. Okay, so I'm going to try and snap a photograph of the label because this is quite exciting. It's going to reveal whether we're a Rev C or a Rev D. We're looking for 333 megahertz for a Rev D. And let me just have a little look and see. Ah, beautiful. This is a Rev D, 333 megahertz slash, okay, so these labels 333/32. So 333 for the processor speed. So definitely a Rev D iMac, the last of the tray load machines. Very cool. /32, that's selling us 32 megs of RAM. /8G, hang on, no, I tell a lie. 6G, 6 gigabyte hard disk. /CD, which is of course the CD drive. So there we are. So we know the spec now. We've ruined that surprise, but it didn't boot anyway, so that's fine. Yeah, and now we know, so that's cool. Very nice. Lovely. Here we are at the back end of the machine, the bottom, the bum, and it is very curvaceous, very beautiful. The lovely pop-out Apple logo matching the colour, matches the one on the top of the machine that we'll look at in a minute. We've got a sticker here, Jigsaw. I believe this must be referring to Jigsaw 24, a reseller / recycling company, tech support company. Look at this, phone and fax, no website, no email, nothing, just phone and fax. Back in the day when the best way to deal with something was to just pick up the phone. This might not be the company I'm thinking of, but I think it probably is. Oh, look at that. It has, oh man, the sticker has kind of left its stickiness. Ah, here we go. Yes, first little bit of cleaning done. This would be to lock it to the desk as well, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think so. I think this would be to actually act as a security lock. There's a screw there, that must just be for disassembly. Yeah, I think this would have been how they chained the iMacs down in schools and things. The later ones had a cool sort of twisty coin thing where you would thread a lock through. That was quite cool. Taking a look at the back handle, in really nice condition here, although a little bit dirty, but still nice and solid, no cracks or visible splits or anything. In fact, this whole area is in really nice condition. Big difference here on the tray load. We have additional ventilation and no ventilation through the handle, whereas later with all the slot load models, the big handle on the back was the vent. There is a fan in this case as well, which was completely removed from the later models, so the ventilation works. I'm not sure, it's probably intake on the bottom because there are matching vents on the bottom like this. Intake through the bottom, fan blows up, and exhaust through the top, I should imagine, at a guess. Moving around this side is completely blank, but we just see more of the glorious body to the machine. Again, in nice condition. We can see some scuffs and scratches, but for its age, it's looking good. And I just want to pull the camera up really high to show you the top. Here is another lovely bulgy grape Apple logo. Really nice. And the only kind of visible nastiness really is where these clips attach. I'm not sure why it's so dark here. It looks sort of heat related, heat and age, or heat or age. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure what's going on here with these. But yeah, it doesn't look too bad. It just isn't something I can clean up, I don't think. It's just discolored over time there where the case is held together, where it's clipped in, I presume. So there's a lovely look around the machine. Now, what I want to try to do is get it fired up. I'm not holding out much hope, but I think it's worth a little go at least. So I'm going to put something down on my desk to protect the CRT. Okay, so the belly of the beast. We can see the underside of the iMac. I feel like I'm invading it ever so slightly. One thing I don't know how to do is open the, wow, that does something. Open the original iMac model. So yeah, I'm gonna undo that screw. There doesn't appear to be a screw here. This appears to be some sort of door, but It's nothing like the slot load, where there's just an access panel on the bottom, and then it's pretty evident that you unscrew the case and pull the bottom off. Yeah, let's have a look and see. Under here is quite cool, by the way. You've got more of this design sticker with this background. It's so retro looking, it's lovely. We've got some deep screws in here as well. So I'm not sure which ones we need to remove in order to access the reset button, which is not going to do anything anyway. You're all going to be super proud of me. Instead of butchering this, I have actually just looked up a guide on how to take the original iMac apart, and I'm very pleased to see that we can access the entire computer very easily. Arguably, it's easier or cooler, I think, than the slot load, because we can pull out the entire computer on one tray. The screw has a tiny plastic washer on it, which is sort of sticky. I think this could be the first ever disassembly for this machine. Okay, this is the part that I was telling you guys about, where, oh, you've just got to give it a yank. And the nice thing about that is we can clean this up. Look at that. We can clean this up, man. That is horrible. Ooh. Ah, look what I spy with my little eye. Even my very, very poorly functioning eyes can spot this. This is a shame. Our logic board is probably screwed. Can you guys see what I can see? Wait, what screws are we unscrewing? These ones, I believe. That is going to have travelled pretty far, and I must admit, the computer did very, very well. Considering. Likelihood of us being able to change this battery and just fire it up? 1 in a million. It's corroded through the entire case. It's probably why the bottom cover's so grubby as well. But you know what that means, folks? That means that we have opened out potential to do something else with this iMac. Butchering a working one, not cool. Butchering a very heavily corroded one, much more acceptable. I'm trying to do this carefully because I don't want to drop the screw into the case. I remember doing that with some slot load and spent about half an hour with the machine in all sorts of positions just trying to get the screw out the bottom of the case. But these are really big and long screws. It's really bizarre to take apart an Apple computer with such a big screwdriver. But we're going old school here. Oh man, the corrosion has travelled up here. Look at that. My fingers are orange just from taking that screw out. Ah, this is sad. Ooh. Ooh. That's how brittle that clip has become. It just broke in half. Just a little retention clip here for the video cable. So this is actually super cool. This is the video connector that connects to the CRT, and you can just unplug it. And I bet somebody out there has got a pin out for this to be able to connect this CRT to VGA or DVI or something, or a little converter board or something. I'll have to have a look. So there's the video cable. Disappears up into the rest of the case. And then we have, this looks like power to me. I would say this is quite likely to be power for the entire computer, because we're not removing the power supply here, we're just removing the logic board. And then this guy is also perished because we've got a little retention thing there that needs to be unscrewed ordinarily, but yeah, this post, I believe, so we can just unplug that. We can leave that there as well. So now we can just slide up the entire tray. And it's not going to be a pretty sight. Oh, look at the cool Apple logo there stamped in. Oh, baby. Oh, no, 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 no. No, 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 look at that. You can see a little hint of it there as well on the on the port thing. Let me get you guys a closer look. So, wow, God, this iMac might be absolute toast. Depends. This could just be surface, but you can see the corrosion from the battery has made its way to the shield here. This is, of course, the EMI shield between the CRT and the computer. Computer's in a completely separate chamber. Very cool design, but I don't know if this would be impacting the other side, and if it's gone through to any of the CRT electronics, that could actually be the deciding factor as to whether the CRT is salvageable or not. Wow. Okay, let's move this off the desk so that we can take a closer look at the actual logic board. It's as easy as that. 3 screws to remove the entire computer from the case, but sadly the computer is not a pretty sight. Check this out, guys. Super cool. This is our lovely iMac G3 logic board, Rev D. The culprit for all of this damage, or most of the damage, is this guy, our PRAM battery, just sitting in its little cradle here. This should just lift off. The entire thing is lifted off. Usually this is socketed, and yeah, I'm not going to fiddle too much, but that's the condition of the battery. Really sad to see what's happened to this. The damage has leaked all over the motherboard, and there's a lot of rust on this cage here. Not sure if this would have all come from the corrosion from the battery, but it could well have done. It's all just travelled down there and caused a lot of havoc. You can see rust and corrosion on top of the ports. Aside from the damage, just appreciating this, this is my first time looking at an original iMac G3 board, or one of the original boards. I realise that this is not fully the original. Now, I believe this memory module here is actually video memory, if I'm not mistaken. There were various versions of the Rage 128 used in the iMacs, or the Rage, there was like a Pro and an Ultra later on. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is video memory. Let's just flip this around. Hang on a sec. Because I can read the chip then. And I think what I'm looking at is correct. You'll have to forgive my lack of knowledge. Yeah, check that out. Beautiful. ATI 3D graphics. Rage Pro Turbo PCI. Rage Pro Turbo. And I think this was the crappy one. Didn't it have the Rage Pro? Yeah, not Rage 128. Rage Pro, and that was like all right. And then, you know, nothing to write home about, but fine. And then this Turbo version, wasn't this meant to be worse in lots of ways? Or something like that? Oh man, I have to brush up on my knowledge. Yeah, and this was like the memory expansion for it. So whether it had 4 meg, whether this is 4 meg on the board video memory and an additional 4 meg. Do you know what, guys? Instead of guessing, I'm just going to look it up quickly and then I can tell you factually. Okay, everyone, we have our answer. This on the board is 2 megabytes of video memory, and there's an additional 4 megabytes on this proprietary little ATI upgrade stick here, for a total of 6 megabytes of VRAM. This is indeed the Rage Pro Turbo, which in many ways was a downgrade from the original Rage Pro. There was issues with this chip, I believe. Nothing colossally major, but yeah, the Rage Pro was generally considered better, so I'd remembered that correctly. And I'm getting all confused because you've got a total of about 6 variations of the Rage, the ATI Rage graphics. You've got the Pro Turbo, you've got the 128, the 128 Pro, the 128 Ultra, and I believe the 128 Ultra was the chip that made it into the Blue Dalmatian and Flower Power and later iMacs, if memory serves me correctly. So yeah, how cool is that, guys? You've got some of your video memory on the board, and then you've got some of it socketed. I would be intrigued to know if this was working. I'd love to know whether you could boot the machine like this, and just rock with 2 megabytes of video memory. That's insane. That part of the board is quite okay. It's not too damaged. Now, I don't know what's going on over here. Our system memory is clearly under there. Why? Oh God, listen to it crunch. There's just all bits of rust and horribleness everywhere. Why is this cage here? I don't know. Does it just unhook? Yes. It's rusted to hell anyway. Oh, there's like a lever thing. Man, look at this. All this horrible battery acid that's collected there. Corrosion. System memory, here we go. This socket is just, yeah, it's buggered. The whole thing is buggered. There we go. There's our system memory. Ooh, 256 megabytes. I am not the first one to open up this guy. I'm not the first one at all. So 32 meg this shipped with. This had a beefy upgrade, man. 256 meg. What's the max RAM this can take? Let me just quickly look that up as well. I have to say Mac Tracker has been a godsend for this. Okay, so maximum memory 256 from Apple, maximum memory 512 actual. PC 66, 144 pin SODIMM. So you can put one 512 module in here. I wonder if that's even useful, or if any operating system, because these run up to, what do they run up to? These will run up to Panther. That's pretty cool. Original OS, Mac OS 8.5.1. Later OS, when these were shipping towards the end of their life, Mac OS 8.6. And the maximum OS that we can run is Mac OS 10, 10.3.9. So these couldn't do Tiger. The slot loads could do Tiger, but these could do up to Panther. So yeah, pretty cool. Let's see if this RAM will sit. Help if you put it in the slot, Tom. It's crunched into its slot, sort of. Ooh. I mean, yeah, this isn't going back. Damn, look at that. Look at that. Is that our processor? Oh my gosh. That's our G3, isn't it? Man, I need to get... Yeah. That's our... that's our CPU heatsink. So it's the thermal compound as well. It's mixed up with all the thermal compound to make this horrible corrosion. Let's see if I've got something to clean that with. There she is. Our G3. Hello. So, not socketed, but this whole memory slash processor card bay appears to be on a riser card. So I expect that actually does come off. It appears socketed. Oh man. Yeah, this isn't meant to be taken apart like this. Okay, it's socketed. I've yanked it out. I think it's ripped the socket off the board actually because of the corrosion. I can just about make out under here, look, it looks like the socket has come off the board. But I didn't know these had like swappable, interchangeable cards. There we go. Guys, what is that? What the heck is that? There's another socket on the bottom there. That wasn't the socket I was looking at. Oh, that's my G3. Is it on the bottom? Yeah, there's my G3. Look at this funky little card. How cool is that? Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's not my G3. That must be my chipset or whatever. That's something. That's my 256 RAM. What are you? Yeah, that's its second slot. One each side. How flipping cool is that? I guess that makes sense. Of course the system has 2 RAM slots, but look at that lovely little arrangement. Super neat. I wonder as well if these are interchangeable. So if I've got a Rev C board, can I put a 333 megahertz processor in? You know, I mean, this board has had it as well. This is really damaged. But yeah, interesting. And I expect it'll be easier to open and things. The reason that this is so difficult, I had to pry it out, is because it's all welded itself together with rust and horrible bits of corrosion, and you can actually properly see now. And I was wrong, I didn't rip the connectors off the board, the connectors are still there. So yeah, that's really cool. So I've discovered something awesome. We're learning together, which is the best kind of way. And I just want to have a little look at the drives now, because we're kind of past the point of no return here. Although we want to keep the bezel nice, just in case. Can we access the hard drive? Because I just want to check and see if it's got the original hard drive in it. If the RAM was upgraded, which it clearly was the hard drive upgraded? And then I need to go and get Henry to suck up some of this horrible corrosion. Okay, there's the optical drive out. Yeah, the front bezel on that's in 2 parts. That would be important to retain for any future use. Hard drive looks original and, might I add, looks positively ancient. They've got this cool clip retention thing, look, that allows you to lift the drive out. There we go, there's the original 6 gig drive. She's a Western Digital. I would have anticipated it was a Quantum Fireball. But no, 6 gig original drive. I tell you what, folks, I vote we put this in the MDD and see if there's anything on it. That would be tremendous. Well, I was expecting to simply open up the machine ever so slightly to locate a little button to try and jab, possibly a memory slot, to see if we could boot the machine, and instead we found a completely 100% dead computer. They've been in there a few years. So if we pat tested in 2007, poor old iMac, somewhere between 2007 and today, had a bit of a leaky time. Oh boy, I'll keep these drive screws because maybe we can screw them into the MDD. I think we should definitely do that. Let's see if this disk fires up. God, look at it, the old design. Glorious. 6 gigabytes. Reckon we could even boot the MDD into OS 8. I highly doubt it. Although if this was used in 2007, it could have Panther on here. 6 gig though, I'm not sure. Probably most likely running OS 9. Yeah, we'll have to see. Now, I've made a massive mess. So I think I'm just gonna go wash my hands and then go and eat some food, because that's a lot to tidy up. So the iMac has been retired to the floor and we have the MDD back up here on the desk. In fact, this has been up here for a few days and I've been fiddling around with it late at night, in the evenings when I've had some spare time. It's been really good fun actually playing with Tiger again. It's been a few years since I've had a machine set up that's running Tiger. I've been playing some games and things like that. I'll show you guys in a second. I do apologise at how bunged up I sound. I'm not ill, I don't have a cold. It's simply allergies, hay fever, nastiness. Today is quite a summery day and the pollen is very high. So we have this glorious Western Digital caviar drive, Apple stamped of course. Look at it, it's a thing of beauty. It's an absolute thing of beauty. We're gonna see if this works by placing it into the MDD, and we're also gonna see if we can see any data on the drive. Now, just for fun, we're going to put it in this front drive bay over here. And I think at the beginning of the video I said I believe that this MDD was stock and it had never been touched. Well, I did notice that this drive bay is missing the screw. So this has been taken out before. However, the 4 drive screws are here. So yeah, they haven't been touched. We're going to leave those as they are and we're going to try and install the drive using the iMac screws. The MDD drive sleds are really cool because they slide in and they click into place, and then they have this lever on the side that you pull down and it sort of undoes that clip there and the whole thing slides out. And the other cool thing is, even though they're in completely different locations in the case and completely different orientations, they are the same thing. So you can see the little lug here for the screw. That's the mounting when the cage is in its back position, and then this is the mounting when it's in its front position underneath the optical drives. Now the optimal position for drives in the MDD is behind the optical drives, not underneath. So in the location that the system drive is in right now, that is the best place for it, because that is the ever so slightly faster ATA bus. But look at it, you can just get two drives in here. It's a lovely drive cage design. It's such an upgrade over the previous Power Macs. And I think there's something quite special about being able to natively really easily put 4 drives in the machine here. Then the G5 took you back to 2 drives, and it wasn't until the Mac Pro we were able to natively get 4 drives back in the machine again. But I do have a lovely rare accessory for the G5 in my stash of things that I want to show you guys in the future. And it's an additional drive bracket that slots into the Power Mac G5. It's a very cool bit of kit. As for the iMac itself, the corrosion and all of the horrible rust and battery acid everywhere led to a big cleanup operation. And unfortunately, all I was able to do was stick the entire logic board in the bin. It's no loss. It is absolutely buggered. That's a technical term, and yeah, it really is. I had no interest in trying to salvage anything from it. It's far too corroded and disgusting to deal with. The only thing I'm a little bit sad about is ideally I wanted to keep the sort of metal base that the logic board was screwed onto, because I thought to myself, if I do ever do like a mod or install something else in this iMac case and use the monitor and things like that, which is something that I'm going to do a bit of research on, it would be handy just to have that perfect sheet of metal to be able to screw things to. But sadly, even that was too far gone. And the other thing is, I'm not going to do the iMac cleanup in this video because, well, that was bizarre. My camera just stopped recording and told me my SD card was full, and I thought that's strange because this video isn't overly long. But then I realised on this SD card I've got an entire 2-hour Taylor Swift tribute concert that I recorded, so... yeah, don't ask, I've just deleted that. So there we go, there's my drive screwed to the mount. And as I was saying about the iMac, there's no need to clean it up just yet because it's so filthy on the inside. That corrosion spread to the shield between the logic board and the monitor and all over the system fan, and if I take that shield off, it's going to be orange all over the inside of the case, basically, because it's just been sat like that, unfortunately, almost baking away in its own corrosion. So yeah, that is definitely one for another day. The nice thing is I have the case, obviously, and it's gorgeous. It's a lovely colour. I'm very lucky to have it for this kind of price. So yeah, that'll come in the future and no worries there. But let's finish things off by having a slight further tinker with this MDD. Now that we have the drive in the cage, we can slide the drive cage in, and the beautiful cabling is sat here waiting for us. There we go, our numbered Molex connectors and our ATA connector. Although, ooh, hang on a second, what's happened there? So as you can see, one of these connections is completely unplugged. Let's see. Yep. Let's see what's happening here. One of these cables is not plugged in. Okay, there we go. So that's the optical. That's the optical. That's the drive. Okay, sweet. That's just come unplugged, and then there we go. There's our 2 connections for the drives. Let's get this slid in. Ooh, lovely. Lovely mechanism. We've put this in the top, so we can only plug it into the top black connector. There's that one, and now our top Molex connector. Ah, yeah, glorious. Look at that. I love the way that the MDD looks when you have all of the drives populated, especially when you've got a lot of cards and stuff in here. When they're fully loaded, they're just so densely packed, and I think Apple did an amazing job at the redesign of the internals of this case. And when you think about how short-lived each generation of the Power Mac was, it is mind-boggling how much effort went into this full redesign, full re-implementation of the motherboard, with all of the nods from the X-Serve. This is a completely different motherboard to all the other Power Macs. Completely different power supply. Yeah, it boggles the mind, you know, when the G5 was right around the corner. So yeah, just the speed in which Apple were moving at that time, madness. Just close that up, get the old lovely power cable plugged in, and let's get this booting up. Here we go. Power button. One thing I want to mention as well, I've been watching some of this footage, and something that I have noticed on the camera is sometimes it appears like the power light is blinking. It doesn't do that in real life, it's just on the camera. I've had it in my videos going back years and years as well when I used to show MDDs. I've seen it in other people's videos as well. It's just something about like the refresh rate of the LED or something. It doesn't do it all the time. Oh, it's doing it now. Yeah, you can see that blinking on camera isn't happening in real life. It's interesting, it's bizarre. By the way, I'm connected to my proper keyboard and mouse. Well, I say proper, just not the Apple ones, because I couldn't stand it any longer. I was, as I said, playing some games and just having a play with the machine generally, and I couldn't cope. Well, I can certainly hear that drive clicking away. It's now making new noises, and something else that's just popped into my head is we're hanging here at this blue screen. Is it going to try and boot from that drive if there's like Panther or something on it? That's going to be really fascinating. I didn't check jumper settings or anything like that. So yeah, that's going to certainly be definitely interesting. Yeah, it's really reading from that drive. Something is happening. So the drive is no longer making any noise and it's doing nothing. So I'm going to call up the boot menu, which I may need an actual Apple keyboard for, but I need to force the system to boot to the correct hard drive if I can. Might have to jiggle about. Ah, magnificent. You're not gonna let me use my not proper keyboard to do that, are you? Let's just see what it does this time. I very much doubt it's booting from the drive that we just put in. Very much doubt it. I'd be surprised if that iMac had been updated to OS 10. Yeah, let me grab a keyboard. It doesn't matter how hard we try, we just can't get away from the mushy Apple keyboard. I need it constantly. Oh man, what? I've had no luck lately booting into the boot menu. That didn't do what I wanted it to do. Just wanted to see the little boot menu. I'm going to do this temporarily, and then I just want to see if we boot up. The thing is with this Mac as well is it has been a little bit on the sluggish side. It's been booting up fine though. Here we go. So we're on the grey Apple screen again. If this boots to the OS, we know that that drive was doing something funky. And then are we gonna do a janky attempt to hot plug that drive? I don't think that's such a good idea, is it? Or is it just gonna hang here indefinitely? Why, computer? Oh man, what on earth? That's crazy. I've been using this MDD just fine. Okay, let's... Oh man. Let's plug that drive back in. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do now, folks. I'm gonna let it sit there on that blue screen for like 10 minutes. Okay, well, clearly something is going on here. Let's turn this off. I think I've got a cool idea. Because we are at the conclusion, we have nothing to lose. Let us put in the failed, or presumed failed, or was failed a minute ago, stick of RAM, and see if that helps. Because I tell you what, this has been running so poorly with 256 megs of RAM. 256 is the minimum for Tiger. This hard drive is nearly full, so it's full of the old data. There's loads of apps on here. It's just been struggling. So yeah, 256. Obviously, right at the very beginning of the video, we took out the 512 because it was doing nothing with 768 megs of RAM. If this configuration works, which is just the 512 stick, and not both of them together, because at least 512 is a lot better than 256. Click, click, 512 installed. Let's see what it does. Is it going to kernel panic straight away? If it kernel panics straight away, we'll try the RAM in a different slot. Apple logo, that's a good sign. Let's see if we get the twirly whirly. Good. It's got a hat on. Let's see. Oh, God. Let's jiggle the RAM into an entirely different slot. Why not? We've got nothing to lose at this point. Just noticed as well, this machine has all of the PCI slot covers, the original vented ones for the MDD, which is quite cool. Usually you see gaps where cards have been added and then removed. I'm going to try this all the way over here. Apple with a hat on. Yay! Pretty sure this memory is bad. What do you reckon, guys? Okay, so to avoid confusion and clutter, I'm just going to shove this RAM in the bin. We've pretty much verified that this RAM is toast. Although, it's going against what I said earlier in the video where it could work in a different system, and that's very, very true, but this is still proving to be super flaky, so I think we will just shove it in the bin. Especially considering buying this sort of memory on eBay is dirt cheap usually. Not though if you search for specific Power Mac memory, which are listings for RAM that in the title and description specifically claim to be for the Power Mac G4. It's like the Apple tax scenario that sellers can rely on, where people will just want to upgrade their RAM a little bit in one of these, search eBay for Power Mac RAM, and then that's what they buy, versus searching the actual memory type and buying it really, really cheap from like a recycle place or whatever. Let's see if we can get this to boot. There's the twirly whirly. Yay! Look at that. Let's fiddle about with the RAM a little bit and get it to boot. That's cool. So we've done pretty much nothing, by the way. This is just one of those peculiar things. We now have a working system. We can touch this Apple keyboard. Let's let it load up all the ATA drives. We should see optical and 2 hard disks. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Probably can't hear it through the microphone, but it is giving us that lovely retro crunch. Oh my gosh, come on, computer, please. Please, please, please. Yay. Oh my gosh, that took so long. Okay, so you can see, here we have it. We have the IBM drive, which is this current boot drive. OS 9 drivers, yes. We're going to have to... Oh God, what's happening with my mouse? We're going to have to have a look and see if this is going to dual boot. Mouse weirdness is... This... God, the system can't keep up with the speed of my mouse. I swear every time I boot this, it gets worse and worse. Poor little thing really needs some attention. Fresh install, some more memory. OS 9 drivers, yes. I'm going to have a little look and see if we can boot into OS 9 in a minute. It's probably a dual boot setup, and the fact I can't get to the boot menu is weird. There's our optical. There is our Western Digital drive. There it is, 6 gigabytes. And OS 9 drivers on there as well. Capacity available. Look at that. Capacity 4.86 gig available. 782 meg. Larry's 1. Oh, and Larry's 2. It's been partitioned. Look at that. Capacity 1.14 and available 570.64. Partition 1 and 2. That's madness. Is it showing up for us in Finder? Yes, it does. There it is. I just can't see it on the desktop. Spring cleaning. There's a cleaning app on here. A DMG for one. Cool. Microsoft Office. So this looks like an OS 10 partition. OS 9 system folder there. Look on this one. We should be able to boot this into OS 9. Let's tidy that up a bit. What is it with people and dumping random files in their root? Applications Mac OS 9. This looks like 10. Oh God, interruptions. Amazon at the door. Okay, so yeah, there is OS 9 on here, as well as an early version of OS 10 by the looks of it. God, yeah, everything is on here. Sherlock 2, Simple Text, Old QuickTime. Oh, look at you. Wow, look at that. This is sick. This is really cool. So I want to try and force the machine to boot into this drive to see if we can boot into Larry, because I'd quite like that. First of all, let's open up Startup Disk and see what operating systems it can detect from there. Startup Disk. So we have got, guys, I tell you what, look at this. We're spoiled for choice. So we're on 10.4.11 here on Rob's HDD. That's cool. We have 10.2.8 on Larry's HDD. That's sweet. I think we've got to boot Jaguar, or at least try to. We have macOS 9.2.1 on the iMac hard drive, and we have macOS 9.2.2 on Rob's hard drive, and network startup. Okay, first of all, let's try and boot Jaguar. Once we do this, we may get stuck. Let's see. Restart. So this is going to be our first attempt at booting off of the WD drive, our massive 6 gig drive. Isn't it crazy how you could have a 6 gig drive, partition it, and have 2 operating systems on there? Jaguar and OS 9.2.1. Such a shame about that iMac battery as well, because let's face it, it would have been so cool to press that power button and then boot up into Jaguar or something, you know. That would have been really nice. On the very, very bright side, the hard drive works. It survived the carnage. Please show me Jaguar. So we're booting something. Well, damn. I was not expecting that. Holy cow. Here we go. Here we go. Please don't crash. Please work. You've made it this far, baby. Oh my word. Hello, Jaguar. Bloody hell. There you go. I'm flabbergasted, actually. Messenger has loaded up. Oh my gosh, I've just been instantly transported to 25 years ago. What is going on? I'm actually flabbergasted that this is booted up, and it should operate a little bit better. Transport monitor could not complete your request. That's fine. Let's do that. Let's quit that. Finder looking positively ancient and pretty lackluster. They made strides in all the future versions. Oh, beautiful. And do you know what? This is running so much better. I did not want to click that. I wanted to click this. Now at this stage, did they enable zooming? Turn on zoom. Cool, we've got zoom in Jaguar. I think, was this added in this version? But we've got no scroll wheel, have we? Okay, yeah, brilliant. Firefox is on here. Look at the older pinstripes. They really reduced that down in later versions. Oh, hang on a second. Did you guys see pinstripes really heavy in the menu bar as well? Ah, look, buddy list. Oh man, someone's iChat or, yeah, iChat. Let's have a look. See if we can, like, sign on. Could not connect to AIM. Oh, guys. This is flipping brilliant. Applications. IE is on here. Let's open Firefox again because I saw some bookmarks or some favorites. Yeah, some favorites on here. Cancel. Barclaycard account. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Some retro internet banking there. Apple, Amazon, eBay, Yahoo. News. Some of these will be default. That's great. That is flipping great. We've got this huge Yahoo toolbar thing here. Here's our recent history. Someone's been having a look at their online banking. That's crazy. If I go to show in sidebar, it might give me the dates because it's not giving me the dates. That's quite weird, isn't it? It doesn't tell me when I visited. Let's have a little look in IE and see if this person used IE as well. It's asking if I'd like to set it as my default browser. Firefox is set to the default browser at the moment. Oh, we've got some stuff saved up here. We've got an IP there for something. Oh, look at this. We've got browsing history. We've got browsing history. Amazing. Barclays account back in 2007. So this is from the iMac, remember guys, the iMac hard drive. So this is being used all the way up until 2007. This kind of lines up with the, wow, this person basically just used this machine to access their Barclays, at least on this browser. BT, Yahoo Mail, fascinating. And let's see if this person used Safari at all. Safari was brand spanking new. Yeah, but what year? At least IE showed me the year. Can't load file. Palm OS updates, Palm desktop. It's really disconcerting not having a sidebar. So that was interesting, little look around Jaguar. There wasn't much going on, which makes sense. People are dual booting at this time and doing most of their stuff in OS 9 still. Now I'm rebooting into OS 9. This is the original hard drive. So the hard drive that came with the MDD, not the iMac. We'll just have a quick look in here, see if there are any interesting games or anything like that. The guy that owned the MDD was a very, very heavy Tiger user, so it'll be interesting to see how much is in here. And then we'll reboot again, check the final partition, and call it a day. But I'm really pleased that we've been able to get this hard drive to work. I think that's super cool. It was a blast from the past seeing the old Messenger and the old Internet Explorer and that as well. So this is interesting. This is taking its sweet time. We have a time, and that is about it. Okay, there we go. It just didn't want to load Finder there. It allowed me to force quit it, which thankfully is the same keyboard command as these days. Yeah, so here we are in OS 9. One thing is my mouse is tracking a lot more pleasantly in OS 9, which is also super bizarre. Nothing whatsoever anymore surprises me. It really doesn't. Let's have a little look and see what we've got. So it's really funny going from even Jaguar back to OS 9.2 feels like a different century in terms of the OS and just the way that it looks. Okay, so we have the Adobe suite on here, which is pretty cool. Flight Check Classic, Graphic Calculator, Internet Explorer, iTunes, Office, Mozilla full installation, Outlook, Quark Express, Sherlock. Not seeing any games, sadly. Real Player Basic. You guys won't be able to hear it, I don't think, but we've got the lovely clicky sounds on. Even stickies is default. There's not a lot going on. Resolution always feels so nice on OS 9. All the UI elements are just kind of smaller than OS 10. Disk is nearly full. A bit. Okay, folks. Not much going on in here. Let's go back to the iMac hard drive. And let's just give it a minute. Sorry, computer. Here we go. So we want to boot Larry's 2, which is Mac OS 9.2 or Classic 9.1.8. Okay, let's do that then. And that'll be our final operating system to check out of the 4 operating systems that are now installed on this computer. It would be pretty incredible if it boots every single OS. It's gone from being a massive pain in the bum to being really accepting of things. Disk first aid going like rapid fire here. Done. There we go. Wow, that was painless. Do you remember on the old Windows 95 and 98, the big blue screen with a yellow bar would come up? And yeah, this is a bit nicer, isn't it? OS 9 would have been the main operating system for our Larry here. That is what we must assume. Well, that's weird. We've got some desktop icons in exactly the same place. Oh, this is hanging as well. There we go. That's weird. I've needed to do that on both now for it to respond. That's really bizarre. Your Macintosh's clock is set to a year before 1973. Well, that's going to mess everything up, isn't it? God, these windows. Oh my God. Show me the goods in the application folder, please. That was quite underwhelming, wasn't it? Open iOmega drive options. Reckon this is the zip drive stuff. Quite possibly. Let's go back to Tiger. It was interesting to see what was happening here, and the answer is not a lot. It wasn't a lot happening. And weirdly, it now can't see the other drive. That's fine. If we go back into Jaguar, let's go back into Jaguar, we should be able to reboot to Tiger. It doesn't want to see the other drive. Oh, Norton, beautiful. Yes, let's rock. Oh, yes. Please scan for problems. Here we go. Hopefully we can get back to Jaguar and then back to Tiger. Tiger, restart. Hello, Tiger. So guys, before I put you through any more of my sniffing and whatnot, I'm going to try and cut out as much as I can because I am really suffering today with this pollen. I just want to show you how badly this game is running. I'm a huge fan of this game. It's one of my favorites. I have run it on all sorts of different machines and I've never quite had an experience this bad. And I think it's purely memory because this game will run on absolute dogs. I think it only needs 96 megs of RAM, but that's not counting under OS 10. So I think what's happening here is just the system is running so badly in general, the game's got no hope of running very well at all because we're on the minimum amount of RAM required for Tiger, which is 256. Yeah, it isn't playable. The mouse feels horrific. It's not too bad in this area. Spiky bushes always get me. Look at the spiky bushes and how much they're spiking. It's fantastic. Hide behind the chest. We're completionists as well, so let's get rid of every single spiky bush. Just look, it's stuttering. And this is at a low res as well. Let me double check. Yeah, 640 by 480. I guess texture detail and stuff is on high. Let's try and put texture detail on low. Try and turn a couple of the settings down a little bit. Did that? Remember? Yeah. God, that really turns the texture detail right down, doesn't it? That looks horrific. Look at that chest. Yeah, it hasn't helped in the slightest either. Which isn't a surprise because this isn't a video card issue. Let's put that back up. Yeah, suddenly everything pops with detail. I love it in these old games. It's sort of like, whoops, with the new stuff, you've really got to kind of squint to see the difference in most of the settings, but like with the old game, yeah, man, you press the button and it's a little bit different. Final spiky bush. Do we get that chest? Or were we too amazed by the my beans? I've played through the game to this point, so this is maybe like 45 minutes into the game. We've done 3 or 4 spells at this point, and actually doing the spells is really, really difficult with such poor controls. Because you have to draw the spells, you know. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, yes. Built-in speaker on the MDD, by the way, guys. Yeah, I can't take this much longer. Let me go up to the save book. I was playing some of this at like 3 in the morning the other night. Just when I couldn't sleep. Haha. Cool. So there we have it. One working machine and one very, very, very not working machine from this £25 pickup. This Power Mac will be ready to rock. It just needs some more memory, needs a USB 2 card, fresh install, and it'll be a lovely system for somebody. The iMac, on the other hand, I think has got to go on the shelf and wait for a rainy day. Not certain what I'm going to do with that one. At this point, I've got an important project coming up that I need desk space for. That's going to be my next video. So I've got to clear all this stuff off here, basically shelve all of this until another day. But it's nice to know that I've basically got a spare MDD in stock. So if I do want to do this up in the future, it's going to be really easy. And then I can clean up the case inside and out, do those minor upgrades I mentioned, and then potentially sell the machine. But I'm not going to send it out the door straight away. Let's wait until I get the real itch to delve into a Power Mac and sort it out to sell. So thanks so much for watching, everyone. Sorry I'm a little bit rough in the last portion of this video. It just happens that my little filming window of time here, my opportunity, lined up with a crazy summer's day full of wonderful pollen in the air. So that's always good, but next time you see me, I should be 100% because we've got to dive into actually a really important project, as I say. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. Thanks so much for watching. It's been great fun checking out these retro Macs, and as always, I'll see you guys next time.